Now, Arsenal didn't manage to win the Premier League this past season, but they did come close, finishing second, 5 points behind Manchester City. They were knocked out at the last 16 stage in the Europa League by Sporting. They were knocked out in the earlier stages of both domestic cup competitions. 11 of 14 FC pundits predicted Arsenal to finish outside the top four. No names mentioned.
How dare they?
And there are some notable returning loanees as well. Ballack and Pepe and Nuno Tavares, all of them have been playing in league. And Ian Darke is still with us, but let me start with Kieran. As a former Arsenal player, how would you grade their season?
I'm going to give it 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10. I feel like I think Nicol summed it up in his speech at the Emirates at the end of the season. He said that the soul of the club has been reconnected, and I think that he's nailed it with that. The fans are back to life. The Emirates is back to life. I think you have to give all the credit to him, but also as well to the board for sticking by him, because you know he rode an early storm and he's come out the other end, and everyone's starting to see what he's all about now. So I think they're 3 or 4 signings away, you know, next season from really challenging on all fronts. There's a few learning curves that he would have had this season, which he had to go through because it's his first time. I think that over the last 3-4 years since he's been in charge, the team has kind of picked itself, and I think that this is the first season that he's really had some decisions to make, and so this would have been his big learning curve, and I think he'll really come on leaps and bounds from this.
You agree, Stevie?
Yes and no. I think yes. Common sense would tell you that when you go through things, you learn from them, and he seemed like a smart guy. But you know what? At the end of the day, coaches don't win games of football, it's players. And I think the biggest test Arsenal have is, yes, in order to maybe take that next step, they do need 3 or 4 major signings. But I think the biggest test is the group of players he has, can they step up and produce for another, 10 games, the way they did for the first, say, 29? I think that's the question. You know, is Martinelli going to score 15 goals again next season? Is Shaka going to score 14 goals next season? Because I don't think Jesus is going to be your all-out goal-scoring centre-forward. So, Odegaard, does he score another, what did he get, 15 as well? So, I think some of the big questions are not who are they going to add and all that kind of stuff. Is, right, the starting point is you have to do it again and then some. That's always the toughest question. Second time around, it's a lot harder.
Just at the drop-off at the end, though, how much do you think the William Saliba injury really did change things for us?
Clearly, you just have to look at these statistics to point out how big a miss he was. And so, to Steve's point, I think the bigger concern is the depth of the squad. Obviously, this season, playing Champions League as well, and that proved a real test, particularly later on in the season, even though I know they got knocked out earlier in the calendar year in the Europa League. But that proves the bigger test. I think the only question, to Steve's point, the only question around some of those players is that they're young players, and that there is an inconsistency that comes with young players. But there's nothing from the likes of that we saw from Odegaard, from Gabriel Jesus, that suggests to me that there's going to be a drop-off next season. I like everything that Arteta has continued to do at Arsenal Football Club. I think this year, in terms of the signings, it becomes easier because this time last year, he's trying to sell to prospective signings that we won't be playing Champions League football. We are going in the right direction. I am going to be here as manager, which this time last year wasn't that certain. Now you know who he is. You know he's going to be there at the very least for the next few seasons. You know what competitions, and you're playing in the biggest competitions in European football. I think that becomes easier in terms of getting players on board. And so I expect this transfer window to be even more successful. I expect Arsenal to be even better. The trouble is, I expect the same of quite a few other clubs in the league.
So with that in mind, Ian, how much strengthening does he need in this Arsenal side?
Yeah, they didn't have enough squad depth, and it just caught up with them, I think, at the end. They ran out of gas. But, of course, they're favourites to sign Declan Rice, who's going to cost maybe over £100 million in the transfer market. But they seem to be most advanced I know Manchester United are in, and probably a couple of other clubs like Bayern Munich as well. So I think Arsenal will strengthen. I think they've got the money to strengthen. I think we owe them a big, big debt of thanks, actually. Nobody thought Arsenal would be contending for the title. They were until very late in the season when, the Saliba injury and one or two other things, I think they just got a bit emotionally spent as well. But 84 points, that is fantastic. They played some great football as well, and 84 points would have won a few Premier League titles, I can tell you. They're only 5 points behind Manchester City. That's some going. So, well done the Gunners. That's what I say.
Are there any names that are attainable that you would like to see going to Arsenal, Kieran?
Caicedo's the first name that springs to mind for me. I think he is a dynamic player that will fit in like a glove to the team.
And you'd have him ahead of Declan Rice?
I think I would, purely because I just think he's got that extra, he's got that something extra. He can also go past the player. And I think that he reminds me of, similar to when we had Alex Song, I think with even more energy, and he can just cover so much ground. That's the biggest thing in that position now. If you don't cover ground, you're going to get found out unless you are like at the highest level technically. And he's got everything. He's got everything. So he would be my first. He would be my first target.
They need some more defenders too.
They need a centre half. I think that will help. But I also think that I like the idea of another fullback, but I think on the other side, because I think a lot of people keep saying that Tierney doesn't match the way that Arteta wants to play, but I think that if you go and get someone on the other side that can play like that, then you can play Zinny in some games and then use another fullback similar in other games. So I think that he will be better off going for like a Cancelo, that type of profile. And then you need another striker. You need another out-and-out striker. And Ivan Toney, I think that suits well, even though he's got his ban. And someone to challenge Shaka. I think someone to challenge Shaka, give him that competition he needs. He's just not going to be able to perform at that level every 3 days in the Champions League, week in, week out. It's just not going to be doable for him. He's proven that he can play at this level physically, and he's played so many games already. But you just don't want that demand on him for such a young age. You want longevity out of him, and I think that also competition will be healthy for him as well. So they're the four I would want.
Is it a player that they should be doing their best to keep hold of, though?
I mean, I would keep hold of him for one more season at least, even if he's not going to play. Even if he's going to play a bit part, I would keep hold of him for one more season. No,
I would keep him for that reason. I think they need two in the middle. And I'll be honest, I don't think Partey impressed Nicol at the end of the season. Not only did he look a little, his confidence sort of drained, but to try and take another step forward, I don't think right now, after what he did at the end of the year, you can trust him. So not only do they need Caicedo, which I agree 100%, in fact, I love him at Liverpool, but they could do with Declan Rice and Caicedo. I think absolutely they need two in there, along with what they've got.
Ian Darke, what were you shaking your head at?
Now, I was just thinking there that, Moises Caicedo would be a wonderful signing. I think Shaka, I think that's a done deal, isn't it? He's going to buy Leverkusen. I think he has played his last game for Arsenal. So that will look a new look midfield, that central midfield, probably with Declan Rice from everything we're hearing, though that'll be interesting to see how that saga plays out. But, Arsenal will need to strengthen, won't they, big time, because they've got the Champions League commitment. And next season it's going to be a stronger Liverpool, surely, a stronger Chelsea as well. Manchester United may step it up, and there'll still be City bossing things as well. So it's a heck of a title race that Arsenal will be contesting next season, if they can get into that race again.
If they can. What do you say, Ian, then, for next season? Where do they finish?
Well, I think it's impossible to make predictions here. I think we have to see the squads as they're assembled in August.
I've never seen somebody dodge a question so well. Goodness me.
All right, you're not allowed to dodge it. Where are they going to finish?
But let me just say that I'm allowed a free hit. As one of the only 3 pundits who said Arsenal would finish top 4, I'm allowed a free hit here. I see Arsenal finishing third.
Third.
Yes.
All right.
Well, I have nothing else to add to that.
Okay.
I'm trying to move on as quickly
I'll
as
go to you
I
last.
can get you to.
Kieran.
No, go Stevie first.
Be careful, Stevie. You know what happened this year.
I'm going to plead the fifth. Well, Darke played the fifth, and it was you let him off.
Are
Why
you
not let
losing
me
your
off?
money again?
Was it? Sorry.
Just give us a number, and be nice.
Fifth.
He's going with fifth.
Shall we put a bet on
I
it
like that
now?
number.
Shall we put a bet on it now?
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.